Chapter 286, Make a Comeback. Chen Baili stared at Lu Shu for an extended period of time, trying to recall what he was about to say. He really could not understand how this Daoyuan class student could run to catch a poisonous snake and pluck out 2 of its teeth during their conversation and came back to continue afterwards. His eyes were glowing as if he has just seen the Matrix Eye just now. Lu Shu coughed a bit as he felt awkward due to the constant staring. Please continue. Chen Baili finally recalled what he was about to say. Guard me. I need to recondition my meridians and recover from my injuries before my opponent recovers. Don't worry too much. Looking at the severity of his injury, his power is going to decrease dramatically. He will not risk coming back so soon. Just keep me away from the animals. No problem, I'm good at dealing with little animals, Lu Shu thought to himself. Just then, Lu Shu felt something moving below his feet. He looked down and realized that the soil where he and Chen Baili were standing on was rolling beneath their feet. The soil that was initially in blocks turned into crushed powdery soil, just like sand in the desert. Lu Shu felt the great movement below his feet. He felt that Chen Baili was exaggerating the severity of the opponent's injury, as if he was that badly injured. He would not have the excess energy to stir up this chaos. The truth was that Chen Baili fell into the trap of the enemy here. The enemy was well known as how can someone of grade B awakening be a small fry. Before the revitalization of magical energy, he was an elite mercantile. With the revitalization of magical energy, he was awoken by enduring tough battles which then he continued to awaken with his tremendous potential. This time, his filtration tactic was very extreme too. Using the legendary mid-soil escape method, he crossed all boundaries smooth while no one could detect such extreme filtration, not even with the all-capable heavenly network. Even though Chen Baili was caught by surprise, he still got the upper hand during the fight. With his abilities, he was outstanding even in grade B. But the biggest problem was that just like Li Xuanyi, Chen Baili forcefully obtained heaven and earth fates during the era of exhausted magical energy and thus injured the foundation of his magical energy. Thus, the destruction of his magical energy foundation made it difficult for him to use his full fighting abilities. Now, he needed to stabilize his shaken foundation. However, the enemy, with his rich battle experience, seemed to know this very well and launched continuous attacks, one after another. The empty ground of a football field size had all its soil turned into dry and fine sand that swirl around the 2 of them like snakes, ready to consume them anytime. Chen Baili gave a cold laugh and while sitting still, Lu Shu saw a ring of waves spreading outwards from the old Taoist priest. The wave froze all the swirling sand in their 3-meter radius. That was not all the Taoist priest got. Lu Shu witnessed the sand around them starting to spread outwards, going down just like a tide at the sea. It felt weird, as if all things on earth were within their control. Lu Shu suddenly realized what it means to be a class B, connecting with heaven and earth, using the rules of heaven and earth. For a class, they will be in resonance with heaven and earth. What are you planning to do? Lu Shu wondered. You are going to leave now, together with the sand. To be very honest, with Lu Shu's current capabilities, it was hard for him to fully understand the battle between the B-grade experts. Nonetheless, he realized Chen Baili's face tensed up. The night was peaceful and quiet but yet, there was the sound of sand moving outwards which felt creepy. Meanwhile, on the outside, the sand level was rising, as though they were building sand walls, forming the shape of a giant cage. The cage-shaped sand walls blocked all the light from the surrounding weird trees, and the world suddenly darkened while the air was still. Just a second later, the sand walls came back like a wave during a tsunami. Right, if there was low tide, there would also be high tide. Lu Shu was shaken by the enormous power borrowed from the heaven and earth. He realized the enormous gap between C and B grades. Without the combined attack of 5 to 6 people together, there was no way to match up to them. The sand flew towards them at an extreme high speed, leaving them trapped with nowhere to hide. Just when Lu Shu was about to take out his spear to break one of the oncoming sand tide, a small green sword that was as clear as jade flew out from Chen Baili's sleeve. The little sword flew towards the tide with a soft ringing noise and disappeared into the gigantic sand tide, like a needle that dropped into the sea. Faint noises of stones colliding with metal objects came from the sand tide. Lu Shu witnessed how Chen Bailei's breath significantly slowed down the moment his sword collided with the sand tide. Soon after, he heard a man's aching cries from the outside of the sand tide. Suddenly, the wall collapsed. Chen Bailei did not move at all before this, he even closed his eyes when he was in great danger. Lu Shu thought that was the end because even this heavenly king gave up on defending. However, Chen Bailei actually chose the most violent method and directly used the flying sword to find the man who was controlling the sand tide. He was actually using his magical instincts to track his opponent before he paused and focused. Chen Bailei was exhausted, he sat down cross-legged to rest. It was obvious that the opponent also used a lot of his energy just now. There was nothing to be spotted beyond the sand tide, but Lu Shu made a move. The opponent was definitely badly injured by now. If not, why would Chen Bailei chose to rest and recover, and why did the opponent stop attacking? Lu Shu felt that it was the best time for him to attack. This was actually the first time he was going against a B-grade expert. Even though the opponent was badly injured, he was definitely still much stronger than a normal C-grade practitioner, like how a dying tiger is stronger than a domestic cat. Lu Shu dashed into the woods. He could still feel the opponent's energy. For safety purposes, Lu Shu even took out the compass in his pocket to direct himself. The speed of C-grade power system fighters was not much slower than B-grades, as they represented the limit of human strength. Honestly, Lu Shu did not want to let the B-grade expert go and gave him a chance to recover and attack again. He personally saw that the old Taoist priest had already used so much force such that his foundation had been shaken. If the opponent recovered before the old Taoist priest, what could be done if he went on a killing spree? After all, Lu Shu had this burning confidence deep inside. At that moment, he believed it was not impossible for him to defeat the severely injured B-grade fighter. And that being said, since he offered to help in this fight, he must fight. Chapter 287, Duel with a Class B. Part 2. Lu Shu gave chase in the direction of the forest. The old priest, who had been sitting cross-legged with his eyes closed and resting, opened his eyes again and said to Lu Shu's back, "No need to chase him, you are not even at Class C, impossible to beat him. Without a fight, how would we know?" Lu Shu sped up and rushed headlong into the forest, to be instantly engulfed by the bizarre splendor of the shimmering forest. Chen Bailei suddenly felt that something seemed to be amiss. Why are the weird trees not attacking Lu Shu? Still, Lu Shu was too fast, like the wind between branches, and it seemed as if the trees were making futile attempts at seizing him. Chen Bailei carried on with his resting in the lotus position. However, the image of the youth saying how would they know without a fight kept swirling in his mind. If time could be turned back, he himself was probably like that too, utterly unafraid of anything. Chen Bailei suddenly felt that perhaps the one he should pass on his skills to should be Lu Shu rather than Lu Xiaoyu. Only thing is, he did not know if time was still on his side. Lu Shu looked at the direction his compass was pointing to while racing madly through the forest. Gradually, he even began to feel himself closing in speedily with a pulsing energy emanating from the forest ahead. The other person not only gave up expending energy by attempting to burrow and hide underground, but had also began to slow down. All of a sudden, Lu Shu felt that something was not quite right. The person's energy pulse had vanished suddenly. A split second later, Lu Shu suddenly saw that the earth beside him started advancing towards him like a tornado. The gritty sands were razor sharp and instantly pulverized any leaf or branch they came into contact with. The opponent actually wanted to turn around to finish him off. In an instant, Lu Shu had whipped out his celestial cloak for protection. His right leg took a small step forward as Lu Shu sent a punch straight into the sand tornado. The sparkling leaves of the monster trees started to break into pieces before Lu Shu's eyes. The starlights within were initially strewn about on the celestial map, but suddenly coalesced rapidly and flowed out as a galactic stream towards the fist. Nothing was held back in this punch. A thunderous roar resonated as Lu Shu's hair stood on end. The surrounding branches shook wildly as if in a hurricane, and an initially cool air started to become hot and dry. This was a showdown between two experts, with the usually much-feared monster trees reduced to playing foil. The sand landed pattering on the celestial cloak, and one by one, were reduced to powder. Only now did Lu Shu have a clear look at the white person before him. Lu Shu was no longer concerned about the distress points of his back-end income recorder. A small hole on the person's waist was gushing blood steadily, and his face was deathly pale. The person's garment was probably torn to pieces during his fight with Chen Bailey. Lu Shu took a closer look at his waist. His skin appeared as though protected by a fine cover of sand, yet was forcefully pierced through with Chen Bailey's little green sword to produce the bloodied wound. Now, the layer of sand over his wound was frighteningly cracked like a tortoise shell under the sun. On his chin was another small area which was equally cracked and frightfully gruesome. The person seemed to be surprised that Lu Shu could fend off his ambush and display such physical prowess, and even possessing a mysterious energy cloak for protection. One must be aware that possessing a protective armor is a means only given to practitioners Class C and above. The saying that a Class C master fears no firearm was exactly due to this. A typical firearm not imbued with magical powers would find it impossible to penetrate a protective armor in one try. However, why was it that the power and form of this armor was unheard of? After exchanging blows, the Class B White Master already understood that in his current state, he could not afford to even take down this extraordinary youth. One must note that his aim was never anyone else but Chen Bailey. Somebody had presented him with an ancient Earth system artifact in exchange for Chen Bailey's head. If not for the double temptation of the Matrix Eye and the artifact, why would he have bothered? If he were to let Chen Bailey lick his wound in peace while he had to fight with another worthy opponent, the situation would not be to his advantage at all. This remains was like a colossal prison between heaven and earth. It would be impossible to find a way out without getting hold of the Matrix Eye. If Chen Bailey were to recover earlier than expected, and he had to fight him without first obtaining the Matrix Eye, his trip to China this time round would become extremely perilous. Moreover, from what he understood about Chen Bailey, it was highly probable that Chen would fight to his last breath to keep him here. Lu Shu chased the white man down the forest among the trees. All of a sudden, before the person could decide on how to act, Lu Shu already made his first move. The corpse dog emerged with a deafening roar and rushed straight for the opponent's head. The trees that Lu Shu and the white man were taking cover behind cracked loudly as they were penetrated by the corpse dog, as if they were simply matchsticks. The white master's heart skipped a beat. Flying sword, the move unique to China. A massive amount of sand were swept up behind the white man. The individual grains of sand flew like bullets towards the corpse dog, trying to block it. For a moment, loud crash could be heard reverberating through the forest. If one were to only hear the sound, he or she would have thought that it was bullets hitting steel plates. However, it was actually the sand hitting the corpse dog dagger. When an individual's strength could be comparable to a human form and deal massive damage to a lethal weapon, it was horrifying indeed. However, the white man was still badly hurt. Killing an average Class C would not have been an issue, but Lu Shu was no typical Class C. The corpse dog's speed was cut by the onslaught of sand but still continued its way towards the opponent. As he was running, the white expert tilted his head to the right and the corpse dog glanced his cheek, leaving a bloody cut. Inexplicably, he felt that the sharpness of the sword was much more fearsome than that of Chen Bailey's. With the new scar as the center, the skin surrounding it began to crack once again. However, just as he thought that things have ended, the white man suddenly felt the soul in his body seemed to be sealed by something, making him instantaneously melancholic, as if the sword took away all his happiness. He even began to think about his death, and how would his family deal with it? He was seized with anxiety. What move is this? At his level, he could feel, faintly, that the damage inflicted upon him by the sword was not irreparable. But at the moment, he simply could not liven his mood, as if being laid a curse by Lu Shu. Must not be careless, something is wrong with this sword. He used all his strength to control the sand. The layer of sand armor on his body came off and streamed onto his palm like rivulets of whiteness. Raising his hand, the sand swept forth towards the corpse dog. Lu Shu was about to make the corpse dog to turn back when he noticed a stony white frost condensing on the sword, making it more and more difficult to be controlled. I have underestimated this Class B expert, so many tricks up his sleeves. Chapter 288, The Soul of Anger, Concealed Arrow. Part 3. With great effort, Lu Shu guided the corpse dog dagger in its slow flight back to him, while continuing his chase of the white man. Between them, the monster trees fell with thunderous roars every now and then. The white master was astonished. The client who wanted to exchange with him the Earth System weapon for Chen Bailey's head had provided him with information. However, the information provided had made no mention of such a powerful Class C expert beside Chen Bailey in the remains. What a miscalculation! In fact, he was now thinking if the client had deliberately held back this information so as to see both himself and Chen Bailey wear each other out. The sand in the white man's hands were not used up yet. Seeing that Lu Shu was still gaining on him, he blasted the fine sand towards the pursuer as if they were transformed into artillery shells. Even though Lu Shu's celestial cloak was extremely sturdy, it started to waver beneath the volleys of highly concentrated sand. Every grain of sand which hit the cloak left an indent on the once smooth surface. Usually, the celestial cloak would use the celestial powers to mend itself when damaged, but the onslaught of sand this time was too dense for the cloak to mend itself in time. With a loud smack, Lu Shu felt a mind-numbing pain on his arm. 2 grains of white sand had actually went through the celestial cloak and made a bloody gash on his arm. Not only that, an increasing number of sand grains broke through the protective cover of the cloak and Lu Shu's body was suddenly covered in bloody marks. Lu Shu was secretly startled. This won't do. If this continues, defeat will come to me at the slightest misstep. Unfortunately, the corpse dog was being dreadfully encumbered. It totally could not function properly around the white man. Even his speed after being injured was still too fast for the long spear. What should he do? At this moment, the two had already been running for a very long distance. Lu Shu suddenly realized, isn't this the route he came from? The white man was actually running towards the border region of the remains. The two, one in front of the other, suddenly came to a clearing. Lu Shu was momentarily stunned. Weren't these the animals which teeth were plucked by me just now? The wild animals were shocked too. Weren't our teeth just extracted? Why are you here again? However, the white man did not feel anything amiss. He paid the animals no regard whatsoever as he passed them. The grains of sand, though, pierced through all the animals he passed as they swirled around him. The distress points in his back-end income recorder began to diminish. He was infuriated. All the teeth painstakingly extracted, all the distress points painstakingly collected, reduced to naught simply after you went past the animals? Lu Shu was inflamed beyond words. You stand right there. You at $#% better stop right there. Are you deaf? Bloody hell, stop right there. In actual fact, Lu Shu hardly swore, but now he could no longer contain his wrath. His distress points. All the adorable little animals. The white man continued running from him, albeit slightly puzzled. Has this bloke suddenly gone berserk? However, at this moment, Lu Shu suddenly felt the second layer of nebula on the celestial map within his body starting to rotate in his fury. The 7th star remained in the center while the other 6 started to orbit it as planets. Faintly, Lu Shu could almost feel that the emotion of anger was like a key, which had opened the box of secret that was the second layer nebula. He was suddenly reminded of the meanings of the 7 souls, the corpse dog, concealed arrow, een of sparrow, seizing thief, non-toxic, filth removal, smelly lungs. They each correspond to one of humans' 7 emotions: happiness, anger, sadness, fear, love, hate, lust. Could it be that to harness the emotions of one's soul, one must first understand these emotions, then use them as the keys? The nebula swirled. All of a sudden, a transparent dagger coalesced on the star, with the 2 words, "concealed arrow," inscribed upon it. It would be more correct to think of concealed arrow as a see-through white jade needle rather than a dagger. The White Master was running in front when he suddenly heard a shrill whoosh behind him. It was piercing and explosive, just like a roar. With no time to avoid, he tossed the final half-handful of special white sand towards concealed arrow to envelop it. However, half of all the white sand he had been used to enwrap Corpse Dog, then a smaller portion used to attack Lu Shu. All he had left was not sufficient to cover the concealed arrow at all. The sound of skin tearing could be heard. Despite trying his best to dodge the attack, he was still hit on the shoulder. Another bloody gash appeared. He was almost driven mad. If you have 2 flying daggers, what have you been doing? Why was he suddenly acting like he swallowed firecrackers? Has he gone mad? The white man could feel Lu Shu's fiery anger, but he had no idea why was he so angry. He could no longer be concerned about conserving strength. He had not expected that after mortally wounding Chen Bailey, such a devil would still emerge in what he thought was a remains with no more enemies who could be of match with him. Moreover, this demon was incensed for no apparent reason. Lu Shu's adversary used his last handful of white sand to stall concealed arrow while he burrowed down into the ground in a flash. The soil seemed to have merged with him. To Lu Shu, the white man seemed as though he had simply melted into the sea with not a hint of distinction. Lu Shu leapt off the ground. The leap sent him more than 10 meters into the air, and even though he had to go through many layers of tree covers, Lu Shu broke through every twig and branch in his way. When a friend comes from afar, he shall be eradicated no matter how large the distance. Die. In the next moment, a long spear appeared in Lu Shu's hand. He bent his body back like a bow before thrusting the spear straight into the ground with a deafening roar. One spear after another were thrusted into the ground like missiles. Lu Shu stared intently at the energy waves on the ground. In midair, Lu Shu was just like a rocket launcher as craters erupted on the ground, as if they had been plowed through once. Lu Shu, his energy spent, fell back to the ground. He noticed that some of the soil churned up had blood on them, but he could see no body. Lu Shu closed his eyes to feel for his opponent's energy waves, but could not detect any. He lowered his head to look at the compass, but it was showing no reaction too. Did he actually escape? Is this all from the Class B Master? However, Lu Shu did win this round of fight with the Class B Master. Despite the fact that his opponent's true capability now was only at the Class C peak level, a win was a win. Lu Shu felt at peace. The sound of Lu Shu's battle with the Class B Master traveled far and wide. However, nobody could see for themselves the actual situation as they were blocked by the monster trees and could only stay and wait in the clearing till daybreak. Li Dian, bandaged up with a piece of tattered sackcloth, was feeling frightened as he crawled along. Could this be the din caused by the old tree demoness? Isn't that the direction where the old tree demoness had leave? Chen Zuan stood up from beside the fire when he heard the crash caused by Lu Shu's barrage of spears. The sound had spread far and wide across the forest. Xiaoyu, Chen Zuan was stunned for a moment. Could this be the ruckus caused by my second master? Lu Xiaoyu asked, subconsciously, would Lu Shu be in danger? Since before that, she had already started feeling an odd sense of unease. Hence, she was worried about Lu Shu after hearing the loud noise. Following that, Chen Zuan saw Lu Xiaoyu actually rousing all the wild animals while she herself mounted a naughty pig. Let's go and take a look. Hey, Xiaoyu, the weird forest is dangerous. Wait for daybreak. How can it be Lu Shu? He is just a classic power system type, impossible for him to cause such a ruckus. Chen Zuan dissuaded. Lu Xiaoyu took a sidelong glance at him in contempt. Don't go if you are scared. Chen Zuan was instantly pained. Go, go, let's go. However, at that moment, Chen Zuan suddenly saw Lu Xiaoyu leaping off the back of the naughty pig and landed a punch upon the ground in the clearing. A thunderous reverberation was accompanied by rolling dust spreading outwards. Chen Zuan could make neither head nor tail of the situation. Cough, cough. Lu Xiaoyu, are you out of your mind? He fanned away the smoke and dust before his face. He had choked on all the smoke and dust inhaled. Is this the power of a Class D power system awakened person? With one punch, she had made a huge crater on the ground almost 2 meters deep. How could this be done by a 11-year-old girl? However, as the smoke and dust cleared, Chen Zuan was shocked to see a pool of blood seeping out from the cracked earth. Astounded, he looked up at Lu Xiaoyu. What is this? A human, Lu Xiaoyu said simply and with the greatest calm. Someone who passed by underground. I killed a person. What? Chen Zuan was thrown off his feet. How did you discover him? Lu Xiaoyu did not say anything, because Lu Shu disallowed her from telling anyone that she could sense spirits. Chen Zuan looked on, befuddled, as Lu Xiaoyu did something inexplicable. She raised her hand and made a scooping motion, as if to scoop something underground into her own body. However, Chen Zuan could see nothing. He asked curiously, Xiaoyu, what are you doing? Lu Xiaoyu gave him a phlegmatic glance. Nothing. This soul, as compared to the one detained previously, is so much stronger. Chapter 289, Dealer of Military Merits, Part 1. Standing at the rim of the bloody deep crater, Chen Zuan could not place his feelings. Even though Lu Xiaoyu had displayed the explosive force of her Class D intermediate power system awakened power, and also her ultra-decisive and composed facade, it would be more apt to say its cold-bloodedness rather than composure. To simply kill the person underground with a punch without knowing the identity, what if the person is a comrade in the heavenly network? Won't that be fratricide? Chen Zuan felt that he should be fearful of Lu Xiaoyu, but he simply could not be scared of her. As much as she had just killed a person, she did not have a trace of any vibe which could justify his aversion for her. It was as if she was merely doing something she should. Xiaoyu, aren't you scared of killing someone wrongly? Chen Zuan asked curiously. Impossible, Lu Xiaoyu answered with certainty. However, she did not elaborate why. The fact that Lu Xiaoyu can sense souls was not a secret to Lu Shu, but to anyone else, it was something she would never say. She would always keep in mind Lu Shu's words. She was capable of catching the soul of the dead to cast into her own celestial map for remolding, but this did not mean that she could only see the souls of the dead. When the person was traveling past underground, Lu Xiaoyu quickly noticed the fluctuations of his soul. Moreover, his 3 immortal souls and 7 mortal forms was incomplete, as if one of his forms had been sealed by an unusual force. Lu Xiaoyu knew clearly that Lu Shu possessed the power to injure a person's soul, because other than the fact that he could collect distress points and sing Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, there was not much which he hid from Lu Xiaoyu. From the start, Lu Xiaoyu had already guessed that the battle which happened in front had to do with Lu Shu. Therefore, it seemed to Lu Xiaoyu that this person with his souls incomplete must be injured by Lu Shu. Whoever Lu Shu wanted to kill would also be on Lu Xiaoyu's kill list, hence she did not keep anything back in her attack, despite not knowing the opponent's capabilities. To be honest, she did not expect to kill the person with just a punch. Big Kitty, dragged him out, Lu Xiaoyu ordered Mountain Cat. The cat obediently went over to bite on the white man's belt and dragged him out of the earth. A white man. Chen Zuan's brows furrowed. At least from the ethnicity of the victim, it seemed that Lu Xiaoyu did not make a wrong kill. However, he, too, was perplexed. Where on earth did he sprout from? Did he break through from outside the remains? At that moment, Lu Xiaoyu gave him a tap. Go, take a look at what else does he have. Why me? Chen Zuan asked, incredulous. Do you want to go? I'll go. Chen Xuan squatted down. The white expert was half naked, and his bottom was also only covered with a camouflage pants for training. He reached into the man's pockets but found nothing. Then, fearless, he went on to feel the dead's legs through the pants and realized there really was nothing on him. Chen Xuan was stunned for a moment. There's nothing on him. Lu Xiaoyu's brows furrowed. Even if he did not bring much knickknacks into the remains to fight, how could he possibly be so clean? She spun around and told Chen Xuan, "Wait a moment, let me think." And Chen Xuan saw that Lu Xiaoyu really closed her eyes, as if deep in thought. Actually, Lu Xiaoyu possessed another capability after capturing a soul, just like when she discovered that the Class D power system soul was hiding money, to search for memory fragments. This capability was not truly complete. Then, Lu Xiaoyu could not find out where was the money hidden by the person. However, knowing a segment of memory was also very useful. The last time, it took Lu Xiaoyu a whole day to remold the Class D soul. This time, Lu Xiaoyu estimated that it would take a full 1 month to remold this one into a black soul. This was the difference between a Class B master and a Class D. However, this did not hinder Lu Xiaoyu's effort to obtain the man's memory fragments. After a few minutes, Lu Xiaoyu opened her eyes once again. Chen Xuan asked curiously, "Is there any conclusion from your thinking?" "No," Lu Xiaoyu gave him a glance and shook her head. She then suddenly turned her head and asked, "Little fatty, you." "Don't call me little fatty." Chen Xuan exploded, "It's really just that little baby fat on my face." "Oh, little fatty," Lu Xiaoyu was unmoved. "Do you want to be rewarded for meritorious performance?" Chen Xuan was stunned. What did she mean? His eyes went over to the dead body of the white man. Before he could comprehend the matter, Lu Xiaoyu was already looking at him in the eyes. "This white man is yours now. He must be a foreign agent, right? Your phone should still have power. Take a picture with him and send it up. As to how huge is the merit, it would be up to whether the Heavenly Network knows what's his class. I feel that it would not be a low one." Chen Xuan was stunned by this sudden and unexpected stroke of good luck. Even a fool would know that this white man was a master. If he could kill him, how huge a merit would that be? "Xiaoyu, you are absolutely adorable." Chen Xuan gushed in exhilaration. "When you and Lu Shu comes to the capital, I will bring you two around to enjoy the best food, play the best games and stay in the best hotel. I shall settle everything." Lu Xiaoyu looked at Chen Xuan, stone-faced. Her glare made Chen Xuan awkward. "What's wrong?" Xiaoyu only gave a dumb look. "Wristwatch." Splat. Chen Xuan almost vomited blood. Previously, before they entered the remains, Chen Xuan had frequently showed off his watch to Lu Shu. However, he had no use for it in the remains and he thought it could be kept. Alas, Lu Xiaoyu had taken an interest in it. "The two of you are really siblings, even your characters are identical." However, Chen Xuan was a little suspicious. This military merit would definitely be worth more than $80,000. Moreover, selling this watch in a second-hand shop would probably get you a lower rate. "Why don't you let me give you an IOU?" "Absolutely no credit granted, all debt to be settled on the spot." "How would I know if you can keep your words after leaving the remains?" Chen Xuan did not act unreasonably. Nimbly, he removed his watch and handed it to Lu Xiaoyu. "Still the same promise, come visit me if you go to the capital." Lu Xiaoyu ignored him. Whether to go to the capital was up to Lu Shu. She wanted to wear the watch on her wrist immediately, but the strap was too long, so she wore it on her leg instead. Having done that, Lu Xiaoyu went over alone to the white man's body and pulled out the ring off his ring finger. Chen Xuan looked at her weirdly. "You are as greedy as your brother." Lu Xiaoyu placed the ring on her thumb and said with an air of nonchalance, "Okay, you can take a picture with him now. I suggest you capture the special traits of his death too, such as dilated pupils and the wounds on his body." Chen Xuan suddenly felt that something was wrong. This reminder, why does it sound like a salesman promoting a product? If it was Lu Shu who did these things, he could still understand. To tell the truth, he had already thought that Lu Shu was a devil after receiving his information. After all, he was the low-ranking student who had made a huge counterattack in the Beimang remains. However, only now did Chen Xuan realize that, if it was just talking about age and capabilities, Lu Xiaoyu was actually more of a devil than Lu Shu. Chapter 290 Miser, Part 2. Xiaoyu, are we now still going to look for Lu Shu? At such unearthly hour, Chen Xuan asked curiously. Now that the military merit he long dreamed of was his, all he wished was simply to wait it out in the remains with no mishap. Moreover, the task of locating the Matrix Eye had got nothing much to do with him. Chen Xuan hailed from the capital. The youths there were highly competitive, to the point that even the girls started to look at military ranks and capabilities. Hence, Chen Xuan had forced himself to approach his family to fight for the chance to come here. The old man at home even praised him at that time. Sadly, his application for a master to accompany him was rejected by his father. Truth be told, Chen Xuan's family viewed practitioners in very high regards. In terms of hospitality, everything was of the highest standard. After all, with masters like Nie Ting who stand superior, a sensible person would understand that when a person's capabilities became extraordinary, innate power class would be utterly incapable of looking them straight in the eyes. In the words of Chen Xuan's father, if a true master was only used as a mere bodyguard, the person may not say anything now as they have not attained Nie Ting's level of near detachment, but what about in the future? Actually, Chen Xuan also understood that his words were indeed correct. After all, any master hired into the family would not have much sense of belonging to them. Now, various families were eagerly cultivating their own children as outstanding practitioners. What for? It was to soothe the resources they were possessing to push out a truly successful person. Only when one's own family members were powerful could it be truly considered stable and steady. Now that Chen Xuan had the merit, when he returned home, the rank of lieutenant would definitely be awarded to him. Also, he would definitely earn himself the power to go beyond Class D. This was enough. To be honest, Chen Xuan had never dared to think too high. If he found out about the rank of the military merit sold to him by Lu Xiaoyu, he probably would laugh at the present him. Just with his Class E capabilities now, he would never dare to dream of the Class B level. Moreover, how could a Class B possibly be killed by Lu Xiaoyu with just a blow? What a joke. More than that, he started to feel that Lu Xiaoyu and her brother Lu Shu both were a little petty. If an IOU is written, are they worried the Chen family would not pay up? Why so worried? Lu Xiaoyu was adhering strictly to Lu Shu's words. However, this was also a character limitation of Lu Shu. He only believed in what he owned in his hands right now. Writing an IOU was of course possible, one simply had to claim after getting out of the remains. However, to two commoner siblings, would it really be possible to claim their debts from the rich? Lu Shu never believed in the word credibility. Impossible to believe. He only trusted himself and Lu Xiaoyu. Actually, Lu Shu was very clear that this could be considered a character flaw of his. Therefore, he would always say that it was a limitation of his, but he was not too concerned. A wrong may not always have to be corrected. Lu Xiaoyu sat down once again on the huge head of Naughty Pig. If you want to stay here alone, by all means go ahead. Chen Xuan turned around to look at the deep, dark forest and laughed immediately. Of course I will go find Lu Shu with you. Am I such a selfish person?
Ha! Ha!
Lu Xiaoyu chuckled and raised her head. Naughty Pig, let's go. Now, she wanted more than anything to tell Lu Shu that the escaping Class B master had already been killed by her punch. Also, his soul had been obtained. If Lu Shu finds out that she captured yet another Class B soul, he would surely compliment her. Wait a moment, wait, Chen Xuan forced himself get into the path of the Naughty Pig and halted it. Xiaoyu, you are not certain that it was Lu Shu battling just now. Also, from the sound of it, it should not be too far from here. It's now only an hour away from daybreak. It would still be okay if we wait for an hour before moving. Lu Xiaoyu furrowed her brows. Every single minute, she felt like beating up this little fatty who always crap all over the place. Of course she was certain that one of the fighters in front was Lu Shu. She had searched through the Class B Master's memory fragments. However, from the look of the fragments, she could be sure that Lu Shu was safe. Lu Xiaoyu sank into deep thoughts. Should we go find now? To be honest, it was not very convenient to bring Chinzhuan along because in her heart, she did not want to let Chinzhuan find out that actually these trees would not attack her. This was a great secret between Lu Shu and her. Moreover, she had yet to break through the second celestial cloud. If she wanted to capture another soul, the previous black-colored soul would naturally disappear. She could be considered to be in her weakest state now. The wild animals bound by her would probably not be able to last long against the monster trees too. Her urgency to find Lu Shu at all cost just now was because she was worried for his safety. Now that she knew he was safe and sound, she naturally would start to consider other things. Lu Shu had said, the secrets she harbored could not be exposed. Okay, then let's wait an hour. Lu Xiaoyu dismounted from Naughty Pig's head. Chenzuan and wild animals all heaved a sigh of relief. She knew the location of Lu Shu and Chen Bailey anyway. In this point in time, Lu Shu was scraping the earth. When his quarry dived into the ground and escaped, Lu Shu took back Corpse Dog and Concealed Arrow, only to realize in shock that the white sands were still caked over them. Lu Shu knew very well that these special white sand were used as body armor by the white man, and towards the end was even used as a killing weapon. The sand were certainly extraordinary. Furthermore, there were actually strong magical waves on the sand. Such a small handful of sand was actually comparable to the black dragon long spear seen in the Beimang remains. Therefore, the street-smart Lu Shu carefully kept all these sand into his seal of lands. Not only that, he even went back to pick up another handful of sand used by the opponent to attack him. He almost went blind searching for the specks but only managed to find a mere half of what there were. Still, to find even a single grain is one earned. Lu Shu was still very happy. When he looked at the white sand in the seal, he felt a great sense of achievement. These were all his and Lu Xiaoyu's assets. Even though he did not know what use could these things have, to keep them was still a good decision. Who knows if they could be sold in the future? Little did Lu Shu know that these white sands were themselves of the same value as the Earth System weapons the Class B Master risked his life for. After collecting all the sand, Lu Shu began to fret again. When he leapt into the air to fire the barrage of spears, it had plowed the earth once over and inflicted critical blows upon the White Master. Come to think of the image, Lu Shu must have looked really cool just now. However, what about after he was done being cool? All the spears had penetrated deep into the ground. Holy crap! If the spears could not be retrieved, Lu Shu would be beyond pain and grief. In the future, he could not afford to be such a wastrel. He should be more cautious when throwing the spears. With great effort, he finally dug out the spears from the ground after a full half-hour of digging with the handled longsword from the seals of lands. This miser only thought of something else at that moment, Chen Bailey, the old Taoist priest, all alone at the clearing after being left behind by Lu Shu. Would he run into any danger? Lu Xiaoyu's brows furrowed. Even if he did not bring much knickknacks into the remains to fight, how could he possibly be so clean? She spun around and told Chenzuan, wait a moment, let me think. And Chenzuan saw that Lu Xiaoyu really closed her eyes, as if deep in thought. Actually, Lu Xiaoyu possessed another capability after capturing a soul, just like when she discovered that the Class D power system soul was hiding money, to search for memory fragments. This capability was not truly complete. Then, Lu Xiaoyu could not find out where was the money hidden by the person. However, knowing a segment of memory was also very useful. The last time, it took Lu Xiaoyu a whole day to remold the Class D soul. This time, Lu Xiaoyu estimated that it would take a full 1 month to remold this one into a black soul. This was the difference between a Class B master and a Class D. However, this did not hinder Lu Xiaoyu's effort to obtain the man's memory fragments. After a few minutes, Lu Xiaoyu opened her eyes once again. Chen Zuan asked curiously, "Is there any conclusion from your thinking?" "No," Lu Xiaoyu gave him a glance and shook her head. She then suddenly turned her head and asked, "Little fatty, you." "Don't call me little fatty." Chen Zuan exploded, "It's really just that little baby fat on my face." "Oh, little fatty," Lu Xiaoyu was unmoved. "Do you want to be rewarded for meritorious performance?" Chen Zuan was stunned. What did she mean? His eyes went over to the dead body of the white man. Before he could comprehend the matter, Lu Xiaoyu was already looking at him in the eyes. "This white man is yours now. He must be a foreign agent, right? Your phone should still have power. Take a picture with him and send it up. As to how huge is the merit, it would be up to whether the Heavenly Network knows what's his class. I feel that it would not be a low one." Chen Zuan was stunned by this sudden and unexpected stroke of good luck. Even a fool would know that this white man was a master. If he could kill him, how huge a merit would that be? "Xiaoyu, you are absolutely adorable." Chen Zuan gushed in exhilaration. "When you and Lu Shu comes to the capital, I will bring you two around to enjoy the best food, play the best games and stay in the best hotel. I shall settle everything." Lu Xiaoyu looked at Chen Zuan, stone-faced. Her glare made Chen Zuan awkward. "What's wrong?" Xiaoyu only gave a dumb look. "Wristwatch." Splat. Chen Zuan almost vomited blood. Previously, before they entered the remains, Chen Zuan had frequently showed off his watch to Lu Shu. However, he had no use for it in the remains, and he thought it could be kept. Alas, Lu Xiaoyu had taken an interest in it. "The two of you are really siblings, even your characters are identical." However, Chen Zuan was a little suspicious. This military merit would definitely be worth more than $80,000. Moreover, selling this watch in a second-hand shop would probably get you a lower rate. "Why don't you let me give you an IOU?" "Absolutely no credit granted, all debt to be settled on the spot." "How would I know if you can keep your words after leaving the remains?" Chen Zuan did not act unreasonably. Nimbly, he removed his watch and handed it to Lu Xiaoyu. "Still the same promise, come visit me if you go to the capital." Lu Xiaoyu ignored him. Whether to go to the capital was up to Lu Shu. She wanted to wear the watch on her wrist immediately, but the strap was too long, so she wore it on her leg instead. Having done that, Lu Xiaoyu went over alone to the white man's body and pulled out the ring off his ring finger. Chen Zuan looked at her weirdly. "You are as greedy as your brother." Lu Xiaoyu placed the ring on her thumb and said with an air of nonchalance, "Okay, you can take a picture with him now. I suggest you capture the special traits of his death too, such as dilated pupils and the wounds on his body." Chen Zuan suddenly felt that something was wrong. This reminder, why does it sound like a salesman promoting a product? If it was Lu Shu who did these things, he could still understand. To tell the truth, he had already thought that Lu Shu was a devil after receiving his information. After all, he was the low-ranking student who had made a huge counterattack in the Beimang remains. However, only now did Chen Zuan realize that, if it was just talking about age and capabilities, Lu Xiaoyu was actually more of a devil than Lu Shu.
What does it mean to be happy? 'Cause it looks like we all don't know. Glass half full or empty. Man, we just putting on the show. try to look to the heavens,